top 10% of the application where the AI always agree with the human, just automatically underwrite it, forget about human, right? In 6 or 7 months' time, it reached to 100% of it. So that's when we lay off the whole 80 people.
The territory of things that AI can do better than humans just keeps expanding.
LLMs can be more knowledgeable than humans, but they can't be better thinkers.
So why all of us have gathered here today was kind of a little bit part spontaneous, but also part of something that we've been meaning to do for a while. Because it's more and more, I think since 1 to 2 years ago, more and more of our companies have been implementing AI, but also even transforming their value propositions and reimagining who they are and what they do because of what AI has allowed us to do. So we thought we'd create like a safe space for us to not only talk about opportunities, but also just try to take a step back and reflect on the longer arc of opportunity. So the two people I have here today to chat with, right, I think they help us stretch this dimension of what is taking a step back really mean, right? On one hand, like we have, Chee Mun over here, who, as an entrepreneur and a technical entrepreneur for that matter, really built a successful company, fintech company in the US and listed it, and it's come back to Malaysia to be involved with building data centers, building LLMs, so I'll have to talk a bit about the personal story, maybe a good 5-10 minutes, I'll dig a little bit. We'll just see kind of like, well, who's this guy actually, right? He's running ultra marathons and building data centers. Like, what does he mean? And on the other hand, like on another side of it is that like we've got Joseph, he really hated his job. So he left and he created, he left, he returned to Malaysia, got a little homesick, came back to Malaysia and said, okay, what am I gonna do in my life? Let me just build some AI apps. And then one of his apps actually like earns him quite a lot of money. So, but in that sphere of like building of loneliness, he's created a community as well with AI Tinkerers, which now has like hundreds of actually people who build stuff gathering in Malaysia and elsewhere every time they do an event. And these are people who are also building these like small apps that are very, very successful. So you've got like, different generations represented over here at different scale of building with technology. But you're also amongst other people here in conversation with folks from different parts of the world, and they're using AI being applied at different parts of their business. Sometimes for them, they're reinventing themselves. Sometimes it's building it for scale. Some just automating their operations as well. So I think the mix of things today, I think it's going to be really fascinating, right? To have the snapshot of this moment, but also kind of like look at the past and reflect on the future and see what's next, especially things are going very quickly. Now to do that, we're going to do a little bit of chit chat about about their personal backgrounds first. And then we're going to talk about what they're working on in this moment. And then we're going to reflect on some really big picture stuff. And then we'll have some prompts that will really get us there, right? So to kind of kick it off, super casual, super vibey. So if you want to like intercept and, laugh at their jokes, please do that. So I'll have Chee Mun share first, like where did you grow up? And what are the steps that kind of like, what chapters have you gone through as a technologist, as an entrepreneur, or as even a father or athlete, that has made Chee Mun today? A bit of a micro autobiography, if you will.
Yeah, thanks, Khailee, for having me today. Joseph here is not the next generation. I think we were spaced by at least a couple of generations. So I grew up...
Yeah, he's actually 12 years old, Joseph.
A bit big for the age, but...
Big baby.
This baby food.
Yeah, I brought that from home.
So I grew up in KL. It was Kapong boy, and then I went to school in the US at Purdue University.
Which high school did you go to? I'm curious.
Sekolah Menengah Kapong Baru. Yeah.
Oh wow, pure Kapong all the way.
Yeah, pure Kapong all the way.
Anyone else from Kapong? Okay, well, Kapong represent.
I still live in Kapong.
Wow!
Yeah.
Back to your roots.
Yeah, so it's a lot of good food.
Bak kut teh, right? Is that a big thing?
Yeah, most of the non-halal shit is. It's really good there. Yeah. Okay. So I went to school at Purdue University, and the reason why I dabbled into AI was there was one summer that I wanted to go on like a long U.S. driving trip. And didn't want to use my dad's money, so I was just looking around for like a part-time job, and it was quite easy. Right? I was just trying to find like the highest paying one, and the highest paying one turned out to be an AI lab. I didn't know what is an AI lab, AI at the time, right? And just so you know, this is like the end of 90s. So these are really like the time when dinosaur was like roaming around and all that stuff, right? So,
Purdue had an AI lab at the time.
yeah. Purdue University is at the center of the U.S. where the good thing about it, when I got there during 1995, the impressive thing is that because of its location at the center of the U.S., all the internet lines go through it. And internet technology, just so you guys know, there was a time that internet wasn't born yet, right? Okay, that was the time.
FYI.
Yeah, that was a time that it was quite new. So it was quite new, and Steve will attest to it. Like the best search engine wasn't a search engine; it was actually a directory service, right? A different time, but that was the time that so there was a lot of sort of investment at Purdue to do a lot of experimentation and building of internet technology at the time, and sure enough, the browser was built at a university almost next to us, UIUC, University of Illinois. That's where Anderson came from. That's why the technology development, internet technology development, was especially ferocious at these universities.
Because nobody else had good internet but you guys.
We have very good internet. It's crazy internet, right? And we got sponsored at the time. We got sponsored so much computing power. At the time, we have Silicon Graphics, we have Sun Microsystems, and we have HPs. Any of these at that time, computers, kid you not, cost like 50,000 USD, right? It doesn't cost like $3 in this day and age, right? So it was like buffet. It was like me as a kid going there. It was like a buffet. So I just loaded up on myself on all the technology that I could possibly be doing.
So prior to joining that AI lab, you didn't know how to code, or you were already doing computer science?
Yes, I knew how to code. And I joined the AI lab and. Because it's highest paying, and I went there at the time. It was Java was 1.0. I think it's before 1.0. It was like 0.8 or something. And I was like, hey guys, I have this new technology, and you guys are using whatever. I think they were using COBOL or some shit. And I was like, hey, let's just use this new shit.
Hey, COBOL that you still use in banking systems, right?
Yeah, I studied COBOL 68.
Yeah.
So the reason I wanted them to change to Java is because I don't know how to use COBOL. Forget about this COBOL stuff, right?
COBOL's far easier than bloody Java, I can tell you that.
You don't know what you're talking about, man.
So do you see what they were tweaking on in the AI lab back then and today? Is it the same shit, or how's
It was not the same shit. But the AI lab was doing human behavior prediction at that time, and it was way ahead of its time. And how it became my career is that when I was graduating, the professor that was running it said that, hey, you want to start a company for it because we did a lot of project for the Department of Defense, and we cannot do secret project because it's a university research lab, right? You're supposed to publish stuff. Yeah. So we set up a company to do secret projects for.
What, your professor co-opted you to set up a secret company to do defense projects?
Yeah. It wasn't a secret company. It was a company that does secret projects.
Okay. Hey, have you ever watched 21? It's like a right? Yeah. Where was that? What's the actor again? Kevin Spacey. Kevin Spacey gets him to play blackjack, so something like that.
So you kill your professor in the end of this, do you?
He's still alive. I think. So that's what we did. That's right.
But you were still studying. Did you graduate from Purdue?
Yeah. I graduated, and then I started the company with the professor, which we did this research continuously, and it was a huge difference at the time because at the time to code a neural network. You have to code the backpropagation yourself, right? So when things goes wrong and
act like I understand what that was.
That's disgusting, is what that is. Absolutely
it's
gross.
Disgusting. When things goes wrong, you have no idea if your code is wrong or the data is wrong or simply it just doesn't work, right? Neural network at the time, and it's all of the above. And like just fast forward to now, there's no such thing as coding back propagation unless you're nuts, right? So
How many years was that stint with that company? Did he give you equity?
Yeah. 10, 12 years. We sold it to a much bigger defense contractor. So prior to joining YTL, I really had only 2 jobs, right?
So is this secret company is called what again?
Similux.
Similux? So it's Similux, Money Lion, and then YTL.
So YTL is my first proper job. My mom congratulated me. It's like, wow, you're growing up, man. You have a real job. I was like, oh my
That's so funny.
Yeah, with companies she actually remembers and understands, right? So you eventually sold Similux to another defense contractor.
Yes.
Oh,
And, yeah, and then that's when.
Then what made you start Money Lion then? Like, who co-opted you? Another professor?
There was, these are like interesting things in your life, right? So I kept in contact with like a couple of buddies from the same research lab, and at the time, Purdue is also near Chicago. So there are a whole bunch of University of Chicago interns that come and do research at Purdue because Purdue has a very big research scene, whereas Chicago doesn't have it. So I kept in touch with them. These guys, if you go to Chicago, you're not meant to be engineers. You're meant to be like investment bankers and all that stuff, right? So they obviously went to become investment bankers. And when I was selling my company, they were approaching me and say, hey, we always talk about starting a company together, and that's what we did. They're in finance. I was in tech. So we started Fintech. Yeah. At the time, there's no word such as Fintech, right? So that's how we started Moneyline. So.
What does Money Lion do?
So it meant when the thesis was at the time, that was 2013 or so. That's when that was at the tail end of the great financial crisis. Yeah. And the regular banks are retreating from the middle class Americans, simply because it's just too expensive to serve them. Our theory was that with the advent of AI, and this was 2013, right? You don't talk about AI in general. The advent of AI and technology will manage to drive down the cost of serving middle Americans significantly. So that's why our tagline was that we want to be the private bankers for middle Americans, and that's what we did. In order to do that, you have to invent new type of loans, new type of credit, and new type of like deposit accounts to fit specifically into their need. So that was really interesting experience. That was that got me into finance.
Well, right?
Took 10 years as well, yes. And like all of my things are like 10 years.
Was it like NASDAQ or NYSE?
NYSE, it was NYSE, yeah. So took 10 years as well. And I think on the 8th year we were listed, and then 2 years after that, sometimes you can be too rich to work at night. So that's what I felt. I was like, fuck this shit. I mean, you always have to work at night. I was like, okay, I'm leaving you guys. Well, the truth is that I don't know if you guys try. If you work nights for continuously 10 years, it actually have a lot of different small damages to your life. For example, dinner culturally is when you gather with your friends, family, and be extremely relaxed, right? But you cannot be extremely relaxed when you realize that, or when you know that like you have an executive meeting at 11:30, right? That's when everyone's snipe at each other. So after 10 years of it, it becomes a bit too much.
Oh, that's interesting. So 10 years of non-relaxing dinners, essentially, right? So then your body doesn't relax. Ooh, I know.
And the crazy thing is this, right? Like because like Moneyline.
See all the 500 people are just like, oh my god, yeah.
Well, the crazy thing is that it's also a U.S. company, right? There's a big difference is that the U.S. company, if the downtime in the U.S. daytime can be a lot more consequential versus the downtime in Malaysian daytime, right? So that's why like at night it also become a bit. Generally, I became a bit anxious because if it's down, then I actually have little bumps in our revenue that we can see. So.
Because you moved back to Asia at the time, but you're working with US time zone. Yes, so if let's say they've got a bug, you wake up at night and somehow have to look at it.
I actually moved back to Malaysia the first year of founding of Moneyline. The reason is because of this. The reason is because of this. This is when you start a company with your drinking buddies, your wife thinks that you drink all day long. Which is true.
Okay.
But we also work, right? Okay, that's when we had our kid, and as a trade-off, we moved back to KL with more support from the family, with the intention of moving back to New York after 2 years. And after 2 years, I asked my wife, "Hey, let's move back to New York," because that's what we told investors. And my wife said, "No, I kind of like it here, man."
So you've been an entrepreneur like with 2 chapters, from graduating to Similux and then with a successful listing of Money Lion, such a pioneer in fintech in the US. And then you decided to impress your mom with a proper job, right? So I don't know, I'm confused, I don't know if any of you are confused. What happened there?
Impact. It's the good thing about working with like a big company, and frankly had zero experience working with like big companies, right?
So basically, like working with big company, they have scale, they've got resources, they can kind of roll stuff out. Is that kind of?
It's I guess when and again, right? I mean, different part of your life, you have different priorities, right? That part of my life. I have enough money to send my kid to any colleges that he wants, and blah, blah, blah. So then you'll try to optimize on per time that you live, how much impact that you can do, right? So in that regard, I just thought when the opportunity presented itself, I just thought that is something that I have to do, because that is literally at the point, the most impactful thing that every second that I spend there.
Okay, one last thing about Chee Mun before we switch to Joseph is that, so what do you actually do? You know what I mean? It's like who is that for it's a lot of international folks here, like what is YTL? Like what have you been working on? What is it that you're actually
It's very, frankly, I think it's very interesting, and I think it's also interesting because I also have a lot of experience in the US. We brought a lot of this thing here in Malaysia. We are launching a bank, and it will be the first text-to-action, voice-to-action bank in the world. No one else have ever done it. And beyond that, also I have 2 jobs really. Like I have another job which is running this AI lab thing, which we are responsible for. The data center, the cloud that we are building, and then the application, and we are training like various versions of localized LLMs.
So I mean, just to kind of clasp like what the journey of Chee Mun so far is that, like I didn't know about the Purdue part, and the AI lab part of you, so that's like incredibly interesting. That you had AI for the past since '95, now it's 2025, so that's like 20 good years or more, 30 years, right, of building with AI. And number 2 is that like with YTL, so YTL is a very large conglomerate, family-run, family-owned conglomerate. So a lot of energy assets, construction assets, property, you name it. But their investment into AI, data centers, compute clouds, as well as also local LLMs, like it's a very big investment. And I think it's the biggest private investment in this field, I would say. And so when they got Chee Mun on board, he's like the perfect one to do it. And it sounds like you had to, I remember when we were chatting, you had to learn a lot about the hardware aspects of running a data center as well, right? It's not just software this time, it's how they integrate. So there's a lot of thoughts that we can unpack from Chee Mun. But you began your story talking about Kapong and then 1995, where you were like joining an AI lab. So Joseph, where were you at 1995?
Well, I was 1 year old.
Oh wow! Not a joke.
I was surprised that he was born.
Okay, so you were 1. Okay, do you remember where you were? Like, what were you doing when you were 1? What language were you coding in?
11 years ago.
No, I was, I don't know. I'm not sure. I guess I was in Indonesia. I'd say that's probably like the highest resolution guess I can give you. I was born in New Zealand, and then when I was 6 months old, I moved. Well, I didn't move. My parents moved to Indonesia, and I grew up there. And then since then, I've sort of traveled around to various places. I just moved to KL from London, where I was working as like an AI ML specializing software engineer. which, as you mentioned, I hated. Well, I didn't really hate, but I felt that the passion was missing. It's like you don't have the connection between drive or like success and your direct contribution. And when sort of like Transformers came out commercially and sort of like GPT-3 was released, I was like, oh my God, the world is over. And I was like shouting at my roommates at the time, like, you guys' jobs are finished. And everyone was like, shut up. Please shut up. We're trying to sleep. I was like, okay. And then I was like, okay, I have to leave. And around that time as well, there was sort of like the block of COVID, and I hadn't seen my family for like 2 years. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna move back and try and build something and see what happens. Disclaimer before I go ahead, I mean, my accolades and achievements are like, they are nothing compared to these two titans sitting next to me. I'm just a geek, and it's been a pleasure geeking out with these guys for the last couple of months, and I hope it'll be fun geeking out tonight. But yeah, I built a bunch of sort of like SaaS products, one of them reaching sort of like a couple 100,000 users, and being used in the research space. We were quite early to the sort of like the RAG scene. And
what's a RAG? Tell them what the RAG is.
Oh yeah, sorry.
We've got some rags at the back of the sink there too. You know what I mean? This is a very different RAG. Yeah.
RAG means retrieval augmented generation. So basically, it's the idea that language models can perform better when they are augmented with some kind of retrieved information. So let's say you have an LLM and you say, what's my name? And it says, sorry, my cutoff date is 2024 July. And you say, this useless technology sucks. If you can then pass it in some relevant information about you using some kind of intelligent techniques, then this LLM immediately performs better. You reduce problems like hallucination and stuff like that. Anyway, we were like, let's make a chatbot. And now that's really boring. But at the time when we were doing that, it was pretty exciting. Since then, it's evolved into something far more agentic. We find that sort of like being able to retrieve information at multi-turns. So finding different angles, doing different types of semantic searches, or reading through entire documents or sections, pages, and doing web searches augments the performance of the LLM much more. And so, yeah, anyway, that's way too geeky. But yes, I made that. And right now it's used by a lot of like Ivy League universities, Oxbridge, and stuff like that. And I'm a solo founder. And then the other thing is that I work on sort of like AI Tinkers, which Khailee mentioned, which is...
Oh, before you talk about AI Tinkers, because that's super impressive as well, allow me to be the transformer and translator of everything you just said. So out of the many products he's built, like the one product that's on his shirt called DocuAsk, like you can feed it your documents or your information, and then you can, that way you can query the data that you've given it to it. So maybe some people have used like Google Notebook, for example, Notebook LM. But this one is like, I think it's more sophisticated, it's built into better workflows, and so a lot of universities, academics and researchers, they want to they've got libraries of a lot of papers, other things. And so a lot of universities actually have their professors just go online and they find DocuAsk, say, hey, this is the best tool for me. And then suddenly the whole university is using it. And then you can, whether it's legal, or it's research, or it's law or whatnot, like it just becomes your private kind of like ChatGPT, if you will, based on information that you fed it. Would that be a good representation?
So that is a much better explanation. Yeah.
I thought it was a rags to riches.
You gotta do that.
I thought it was a movie.
And...
Oh, wait, before you add things, what's the most useless thing you've built that didn't have any traction at all?
Oh man, the list is very long. I built a lot of useless crap. I would say like 90+% of the things that I've built have like literally 0 users. Not even my parents, they're like, please stop telling us about the things that you build. I'm like, okay, sorry guys. So yeah, there's tons of useless stuff, but I think that through that journey, I found that tinkering is a really sort of like fundamental way to learn anything as a human being. Feet on the ground is the only way to grow your skill set. And so I built all kinds of things.
What would you say is the difference between tinkering and building?
It's a good question. I'd say that building is very sort of like direction oriented, right? You're thinking like, okay, some guys come and invest money into me and they're expecting me to build this, right? You have a specification. It's like, you have to build this. Tinkering is like, that's cool. And then it's like,
playing, right?
That's pretty cool. Yeah, exactly. So it's very much directionless and enjoyment based, passion based. It's like, holy crap, that could help me, I think. And then you build something stupid and then it doesn't help anyone. And you're like, oh, well, you know what I mean? Instead of being like, oh no, my investors are gonna kill me, so.
Yeah, so I just want to lay that out because I think a lot at 500, but also a lot of the founders themselves, they start with like tinkering on some things because they want to solve certain problems. And then they suddenly realize, like, I think Wai Hong from Store Hub was here yesterday and he was tinkering around some stuff. Then he showed his team, he's like, wow, here's how we can solve it. And suddenly like they're doing a lot of like sales, customer service type of process and chatbots because it started with tinkering. So I think the opportunity to actually tinker and play around some AI tools that later you discover your direction and it becomes building, right? Yeah. So you built sorry, go ahead.
One of the things that I learned after joining YTL is that we were lucky because we are predominantly software people, which means that frankly, when we say we are building stuff, we were actually tinkering stuff, like 99% of the time, right? Yeah. Because it's simply because each decision, each micro decision that we make or we try, generally can easily be undone. Whereas in a lot of other world, that is not the case, right? Where they are actually building, right?
No undo button, yeah.
Yeah. So some of these some of these. Data center that we built, and they asked me, hey Chee, what do you think of this? And I told them, yeah, that makes sense. And then tomorrow, like a couple of weeks later, trend change and all those shit. And they asked me, hey, can I change that? They have this west south orientation for servers. And you can change it, but it will take like $15 million for 3 weeks to change it. I was like, oh fuck! like there are certain decisions. I think there are different type of I think we're lucky because we can tinker, and it's a very nice activity to do. It's very creative based, but in other industries there's less so.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So tell us a bit about what AI Tinkerers is right now.
Yeah, sure. So AI Tinkerers is a community that I eventually built here as like a subchapter of like something that like a global movement. And really it was kind of like something that I wanted to do because I was sort of lonely being like a builder. And I was like, there are not enough nerds around that I can talk to about this kind of stuff. So I ended up just putting together like a small event which attracted 6 people. And it was probably one of the most embarrassing things I've ever done. My girlfriend went and like bought some pizza, and I was sitting there. I was like, I'm never doing this again. It's like, this is the worst. And then eventually, over the last sort of like 6 to 8 months, it's grown like pretty big. And we're coming close to like 1,000 builders here in Malaysia, all working on like fun stuff. I'd say the appetite here in Malaysia isn't as big as it may be in sort of places like America and stuff like that for legitimate building, but it's moving in that direction. And it seems like the ability for non-technical folks to really build stuff without necessarily having technical expertise is really bridging, like closer and closer every day. And so, yeah, I feel like, and Khailee and I've chat about this a lot, that being a visionary in any sense or knowing anything about any non-technical domain, you could just build something which will have lasting value forever just by working on stuff. And this is kind of the ethos of the entire movement, where it's like, hey guys, trust me, you can tinker. And they're like, oh, we can tinker? And then they tinker, and then magical things kind of happen as a result. And so, yeah.
So, well, the money behind the magic, is it okay to share your monthly recurring revenues of DocuAsk? Because I think it's impressive.
Yeah, sure. So we're approaching like $300K annual right now, and it's a solo thing. I think
there's no freelancers, no interns, nothing. It's just you.
Yeah, I'm interviewing interns right now, but up until this point, yeah, it's just been entirely me. So all BD, all like product stuff, building. And like customer service, a lot of customer service. That's all been me. So
yeah, it's 300K USD annualized recurring revenue, right? So how old is this company?
I don't know exactly. I think it's like maybe like a bit over a year and a half, coming up maybe coming up close to 2 years. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, so let's say almost 2 years, maybe 300K. I remember one little reflection we had when I was chatting with Joseph was, I think you mentioned that in your customer support and the website, you keep saying we. right? And I just felt so like inauthentic when you say we because it's just him. You know what I mean?
I still do that even now. It's like we're doing this thing, and then like I'll have to be like, well, I say we, but we sounds way more like believable than I. You know what I'm saying?
We is the upside down.
Yeah.
That's a visual fun too.
That's why Steve's in the front row.
I know. Front row hecklers. Good job. Well, okay, so I think we've context set a little bit, right? We have just a signpost. We have like an audience full of people who are also builders, who've built, implemented, rolled out, and like with different depths of engineering. Then we've got like two individuals with, have done different things since 1995. But all of us sharing the same thread, right? So I'm going to signpost, and I want to get some questions which the both of you won't answer, right? I just want to get some questions from the crowd, and then we'll go to the second half of our little chat, where I'm going to try to consolidate and also like bring up some much larger questions to really challenge these guys. But so anything anyone in the crowd is curious about them or about AI in general, right? I want to take 5. Okay, let's go. Sharil first.
Okay, so AI has gotten through a lot of springs and winters, and this is the latest update. How confident are you that this is the real deal, or we're just at the top of the hype cycle?
Okay, let's hold the suspense. Let's not answer that. Let's
I'm
get more
not
questions.
answering.
Okay, Abdul.
Any existential crisis on AGI?
Okay, let's hold. That's a good one. Existential crisis in AGI. Are we at the top of hype cycle? More questions. Cover that. Oh, okay, Abby.
How do you feel about, like, obviously AI keeps evolving, right? And there's a lot of competitors to you right now that's sort of starting to spring up. How do you deal with, like, feeling like maybe the next OpenAI release might sort of like eliminate everything you've sort of built?
Also existential. I like that very
Great
much.
question.
Okay, let's see how many questions we can remember. Okay, Santi.
Yes, perspectives around the future of software development with, tools allowing us to write way more
stuff.
code. That's also adding complexity, managing extremely big code bases. It's gonna be interesting.
Oh, yeah, especially if a lot of the code bases were like AI generated, right? And then you've got this architecture, how do you refactor that later and things like that. Super cool question. Chrissy.
I'd love to know your thoughts as well on what you think that the future of venture capital is in this new world of AI.
Yeah. How would you interact with investors? What do you want investors to give you, right? Or perhaps like related topics to that future VC evolution. Bjarta, you raise your hand.
How do you see different parts of the world when it comes to the development? Like US is very free and open for everyone. Europe is pretty much closed down with the regulations. Malaysia is just forming regulations. So.
Ooh, okay, government regulation centric stuff. Okay, let's like 2 more. Why not? These are all like crazy. Okay, Steve.
Can I replace an IBM mainframe banking system with complete AI created software today?
I can answer that right now.
Yes.
Well, hold the suspense because again, I want to just like get through this tension going, right? Anyone from this side of the room? Anyone? Okay.
How many more years do we have as a species?
Oh, okay, I like that. It's kind of like humanity, kind of like, even more than existential, it's almost like biological.
Well, yeah, I mean, like Noah, it is existential, right? How many more years really will it be before we're all replaceable?
Okay, so existential questions, that's one. We've got technological replacement rate questions. We have some finance-related questions related to hype cycles and evolution of like financiers. So largely we have some of these themes, right? So let's use that as feeders and prompt to be the rag to your LLM, right? Take it away, any both of you.
Okay. So
Pick your poison.
I think that a lot of the questions are pretty closely related. Like the AGI stuff, how quickly we can replace IBM and humans. I think that there's a lot of like conflicting opinions in the AI space about how close we are coming to AGI and whether or not we can sort of like build things that truly do replace human beings. A lot of the time you see people like Sam Altman and like CEO of like Anthropic and stuff like that talking about the fact that they've seen things in their labs that are technically AGI already. Seems like they're pretty biased though. I would say that the voice that I listen to the most is Jan LeCun, who I think is the CSO in Meta, and he doesn't seem very convinced, and I think his reasoning is pretty reasonable in the sense that LLMs can be more knowledgeable than humans, but they can't be better thinkers. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that whether or not we are like over leveraged is more of an indicator as to whether or not we're heading for another AI winter. Not so much the idea that the AI won't sort of like reach expectations. I think we kind of know that it's just going to be knowledgeable and it's going to be some supplementary force to like human productivity. And it's not going to be like Skynet. Well, we don't know that, but that's the hope, I guess. Maybe I'm optimistic.
Oh, maybe Skynet's already here, but it's like unbundled into the Mag 7.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, I don't know if that really answered you guys' questions. I'm sorry, but yeah.
I mean, this is conversation. I might as well just if you have any retort to whatever he said. Go ahead.
Re-snort. Retweet.
Beat up the 12-year-old mind. But however, I think it's interesting to pause and reflect upon what the good thing about listening to Yan LeCun is the fact that he tells you what AI cannot do.
How do you spell this guy's name? Come on.
YANNLECUN.
Yeah.
What?
YANNLECUN.
Good guy. He tells you what AI cannot do, and after all, it's a machine learning, right? But however, it is a very impressive machine learning program, right? So, and people talk about AGI. It's tough to define AGI, obviously. But if you're talking about like if your AGI, in most sense, they're not smarter than, say, your friends next door. It's already much smarter than my friends next door. Right? Or most of my friends anyway. Like all of my friends actually. Like
all your friends combined. Hey, you need new drinking buddies. You know, you need sober buddies.
Cannot drink is a problem. However, but like I mean, just think about it, right? Like it's at any given point, it can answer PhD level biology, physics, and chemistry questions. None of my friends can do it. Steve, can you do it? So I think there is certain quality to artificial intelligence, machine intelligence, that is quite different from human intelligence.
Right.
And we have to appreciate that and understand like we have to double down on the good quality of machine intelligence and make it work. And this is demonstrated not just with the current generative AI, but even with supervised learning as well, right? Like case in point is that, am I taking a bit too much time?
Go.
So during my Moneyline years,
Long
right?
form.
Yeah. During my Moneyline years, so what we did was that the first day we started the company, we started writing loans because we are a whole bunch of Asians that want to make money immediately. It's like, fuck this Robinhood investment shit, right? Like, it doesn't make money for 10 years. So we start making loans, and then me being me is that each of the human underwriter at the time, we have 3 or 4 machine learning scores that they look at, and then they decide if they want to give the loan or not. So we grow to a point that we have about 80 human underwriters. That's when the CEO and me was talking about, like, hey, to double the loan rate, we have to have very easy 160 people, and we very fast becoming like a HR company rather than like a tech company, right? So he said like, hey, instead of doing that, right, the top 10% of the people, top 10% of the application where the AI always agree with the human, just automatically underwrite it, forget about human, right? So we did that, right? But in 6 or 7 months' time, it reached to 100% of it.
Wow.
So that's when we lay off the whole 80 people.
Man.
And since then, the loan volume has grown like 100 times, right? Because all you need to do is to up your AWS bill a little bit, and we look into the data. It's quite crazy, right? Like, these algorithms are so much smarter than human, because the human, you can see, like, if they make the loan application determination around like 11:30 a.m., it's less likely to pass because they're hungry, right? It's fucking crazy, right? So to a certain degree, and we are talking about this algorithm that we designed like 8 years ago. That was way before generative AI. It's entirely supervised learning, right? And even then, it's so much better than humans. So if you are talking about AGI, you almost miss the point, right? I think the point is actually using what machine intelligence best at a problem space that you really need to do. So and I do think at those pillars where machine intelligence is really good, it is going to completely obliterate human in all of those kind of endeavor. And this including like some of the more creative stuff, including like writing, designing in this day and age. So can be interesting for some of the doomish questions that we will ask.
Well, I think that I think to weave some of this, maybe I'll take this conversation and because I think that firstly, me kind of recognize what happened. I think 8 years ago at Moneyline, where you just laid off 80 people because the algorithm did it better. Have you all seen that reel right now about Klarna and their HR approach? Right, so they had like 3,000. I think it was like 3,500 staff, and then they had 1,000 of them leave after COVID, the various reasons, and they have 20% attrition a year because people stay at the company very long. They changed, but they had frozen hiring for a few years already, and they've been instead tasking the people internally to just create different AI agents and other things to operate with Klarna. Now, the interesting thing is to also give solace to the people who stay in Klarna is that they're going to take all the salary pool. They're just going to redistribute to the people who are still here. So actually, the people who use AI within Klarna right now and who are still with Klarna, they just get paid more, right? Because you don't have to share the same costs, the whole total like HR OPEX with everybody else. So I mean, these are all just things that are happening. So our reaction to it can be, you can choose the reaction. You'd be like, oh man, I'm like so afraid of this. What if I'm out of a job in a couple of years? Which is a very fair reaction. Or you can say that it's like, okay, well, I want to stay in Klarna and be the one who gets paid more, right? So it's like, what kind of tools can I embrace, use? How can I apply? I think that before the tech boom that we exist in right now, most of the job descriptions we have today, even like product managers and stuff like that, like these aren't, you search for it on Google or LinkedIn, those terms didn't even exist. So like I would love to imagine someone who can actually go around and just like you know, fix stuff and build AI across the firm and things like that. You know, I'm trying, but I don't even know what to call such a person, right? Who can just like go in and learn. It's like probably like a product manager of sorts, but this thinking is also a little bit short term. But I just want to recognize that point to say that if you talk about job displacement, let's not like dull ourselves, you know. Let's just know that a lot of tasks machines are going to do so much better, and that will definitely change like HR practices everywhere. And as founders and people who work in companies as well, it's just something that we got to embrace. And it's something that has been doing since the dawn of time when machines or wood or steam engine or any of these kind of technologies have happened. But I mean, do you all like largely agree, or you think that I'm a bit too pessimistic about it? I don't know.
No, yeah, I mean for sure. I agree. It's like any like revolution, right? Any technological revolution causes like the displacement of jobs. It's not something that like anyone can really sort of discredit or discount. It's just a fact. And I think that a lot of time people kind of know the aspects of their profession that can be replaced by not saying AI but LLMs specifically. So generating natural language or some kind of structured language, which is generated like at accuracy levels like way higher than they could possibly imagine doing so. And like
yeah, and I think that maybe if I were to take that as well, is that and flip it a bit, is that every release of any of the competing LLMs, they actually do such a much better job than the previous, right? To Abby's point, it's almost like kind of scary because the territory of things that AI can do better than humans, it just keeps expanding. But what has also happened as a result in venture capital is that we've seen companies that reach crazy revenues with much less people. So like one of the AI companies that we backed out of our Georgia program, they're like an English language tutor, where you can, instead of like having like say Duolingo, you have a certain structure, you're trying to learn English, right? You just choose the topics that you want to talk about. I'll talk about fashion, I'll talk about sports, and then like the video thing, you just like talk to it and it helps you with your English in such a natural way. In 14 months after launching, they made $20 million in annual revenues, right? And then they moved to Dubai for tax because it's so bloody profitable. And then the total staff, including the founders. So as far as investing opportunity is concerned, like this is happening more and more and more. There are a lot of companies that at first, like I mean, there are a few that we passed on as well. Because their valuations are a little bit too high, and I thought like, oh yeah, valuation's really high. But what I didn't factor into my algorithm on investing is that like there's this one video making company that you text to video kind of company. I was like, oh, there are like 20 other applications doing it. Anyways, they're doing $1.5 million in annualized revenues when we met them. I touched base with them. They also moved to Dubai, so I caught up with them there. 10 months later, the annual run rate became $6 million. total number of employees was 6, so, and they still have 20 other applications out there. But when you talk about the total amount of people who want a tool like that versus editing this shit themselves, let 20 tools bloom. Each of them probably has like a good like few million ARR, right? Right. So we're just at that stage right now of rapid adoption of this. But before reverting back to this, right? I think we can talk about tactical opportunities, but maybe if I may kind of share a very challenging question that was asked during the recent Web Summit. I was on a panel similar to this with an NVIDIA person who takes care of all the venture stuff, and then the interviewer was a Bloomberg person from China. And she was asking about DeepSeek, right? And versus, and kind of sovereign LLM wars. And so she asked about DeepSeek competition and things like that. I joked with her. I said that, well, are you want me to talk about DeepSeek to support China or what? I realized I was giving her like a straight jab, but she wanted to know. Her question was more like, where is this headed? Because there's such intense competition that's very, very fast. So I shared with her that like my view is that there is a occurrence in biology and natural evolution called co-evolution. So what does this mean? There's this book called Survival of the Sickest. It's written by evolutionary biologists. It is about how us human beings and our bodies, we evolved to be super functional the way we are, not just because of us, but because of bacteria. And how all kinds of bacteria has been in animals, it's in our digestive system, reproductive system. These bacteria perform so much of our physical function and they get better because their iteration cycles are actually very, very fast. That's why we have COVID and other things, because diseases as such actually evolve pretty quickly. But they also help us perform digestion and a lot of other things, send signals to our brain and helps us, So there's a lot of like co-evolution of bacteria. Now we think of co-evolution with technology. There's so many things that because we no longer need to think about, we no longer need to do anymore, it helps us learn new behaviors. So many of us, we've almost like adopted like a learned helplessness from the industrial complex where all of us are taught to be like Henry Ford machines, the whole education system, the production efficiency system, right? To be following instructions, performing instructions. We've learned to not be creative anymore. Then we sign up for like a tufting class where we're like poking holes in wool by the dots, and we're doing a little bit of painting on the weekends, and we have this little window on what it's like to be creative again. If AI can take away a lot of these jobs that are more performant for the industrial complex, I really have full conviction that this new human renaissance that's driven by the ability to dream, or rather a willingness to dream, because you learn that all these small dreams can happen in the next 1 hour because of your using cursor to code. Like you have this new addiction to become a creative person once again, right? So that's where I hope a lot of you can be on that side of the co-evolution with AI.